Zionism is evil. It is purely evil. It has created disasters, misery, atrocities, wars, aggression, unhappiness, insecurity for millions of Palestinians and Arabs. This ideology has no place whatsoever in a just world. None. It has to go, it has to end, and it has to be removed. Even its memory has to go.
Hello and welcome back to Palestine Deep Dive. My name is Ahmed Alnaouq. I'm a Palestinian journalist from Gaza. And today I'm privileged to be joined by a great Palestinian writer. Her name is Dr Ghada Karmi. She's a physician, she's an author, and she's a long campaigner for the Palestinian rights here in the UK. Dr Ghada, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
You have always been an inspiration for me personally and for many Palestinians and pro-Palestine activists here in the UK. And we have always looked up to you. So thank you for what you have done over the past decades. And thank you for being the amazing Dr. Ghada.
Look, I only do my duty. If people see in it something inspiring, that gives me a lot of pleasure. I'm happy. But that's not, of course, the aim is for one to do one's duty, tell the truth, and pursue justice.
This is what we all try to do. But yeah, so many others, or they were Palestinians or non-Palestinians, they had the means to do what you have been doing, and they chose not to, out of fear or out of intimidation or just laziness, I don't know. But we must always acknowledge those who took it upon themselves the responsibility to speak for their people.
Yeah, well, I can only tell you, it was no effort. It comes naturally to me. Somebody who has lost their homeland within living memory. I was a child in 1948, but I do remember enough to know that I lost my world in 1948. That can never be forgotten or forgiven. And so, to me, it was always natural to try and do something about it, to try to convey the message to people and to see if there is the promise of a better future for the Palestinians than the past that I know.
And it's very powerful what you have been doing. And especially, writing about your memories, about your childhood, writing about Palestine. We have here In Search of Fatima, your memoir. I read it. It's very powerful. So thank you again for that. And as you know better than me, during the past decades, ever since the Nakba, the Palestinian people and Palestine has been through a lot. We have been through hell. And it's only getting worse. So allow me, Dr. Ghada, to ask you first about your latest article that you published on Substack. Is it the end for Palestine?
Well, I really meant the title, It wasn't just sensational to attract people's attention. I mean it. Because I think if you look at what Israel has been doing, and much more to the point, what it has been allowed to do, it would be a fool who would actually say that things are not looking grim. I can imagine that this is possibly the end of Palestine. And I mean that in exactly that sense. If you have a state that is powerful, that is heavily armed, and that is funded and supported like the State of Israel, and that is allowed, literally allowed, to do whatever it likes to the Palestinians, how long would it be before we see the end of the Palestinian struggle, not because they want to, but because it is not possible to keep fighting the United States, um, Israel combination, supported by the whole Western world. It's too much, really.
It is too much for the Palestinian people to handle all of this. And you know better during the past decades, in the 60s and 70s and 80s when you were here in the UK, I assume the support for the Palestinian rights were so much less than now. So yes, things in Palestine look grim, they look dark, but we can see a huge change in the public opinion in the West about Palestine, the awareness of the Palestinian cause. So do you still think after all of the progress that we have made during the decades, we're still at a crucial point that Palestine might end eventually?
Well, of course, we have to fight against despair, and we have to try and see things positively. But I have to be honest with you, I'm worried because there are limits to how much a small people, after all, the Palestinians are a small community in the end, how much such people can be expected to fight against an enemy which is many-sided, many-headed monster. How long can you expect people who are, let's face it, certainly supported by, at the popular level, I do not dispute that, but there is not a single government which is prepared to take up the Palestine cause properly and to fight to defend the Palestinians. There is not one. Now, this has gone on for over 70 years. How much longer is this going to go on? And when you think about the genocide in Gaza, and that the genocide has not provoked a change in the official attitude, I'm astonished by this, and it needs an explanation. I fully take on board, and I agree with you, that at the popular level, I have lived quite a long time. I have never seen the amount of support for the Palestinians as I see now. It's global. It's everywhere. It's very encouraging. It's very heartening. But we also see there is almost a race for time, just as the popular support for Palestine increases, Israel and its friends are increasing and accelerating their destruction of the Palestinians and their habitat. Uh, how can you win this race? I mean,
Yeah.
put it in this way. And I'm realistic enough to see that Israel quite clearly is aiming at the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. That's what it's always wanted. And it's succeeding, not fully succeeding at all, but it keeps trying. And the problem is it is supported in that. And that is something that I think we need to talk about.
Yes, we need to talk about the enablers of the genocide and the occupation, but I want to go back a little bit. You touched upon something that is very important, which is the expectations of the Palestinian people. Everyone expects that the Palestinian people will be like resilient forever, resisting forever, as if we are these superheroes, people who have supernatural powers that despite everything that is being practiced against them, they will continue to thrive and persist and exist and all of that. And that is, I think, part of the dehumanization that I personally try to fight. I'm trying to say to the world that yes, the Palestinian people are powerful, they're proud, they're amazing, we're wonderful, we resist the occupation every day, but we understand that we have limitations. And as long as Israel is supported and enabled by the great powers of the West, I think we will not have a very bright future. You do not expect the Palestinians forever to continue if you allow Israel's enablers to continue supporting Israel. So let's talk a little bit about the enablers of Israel, the enablers of the occupation and the genocide and the siege. Why do you think it is important now that we talk about them rather than just keep narrating the stories of how Israel is horrific and they have been practicing this genocide against the Palestinian people?
Yeah, listen, I think it's absolutely crucial now to focus on the enablers because, as you've pointed out, we can go on and on giving examples of Israeli brutality, of the atrocities, of the cruelties. That's not, for me, the point. The point is who is allowing this to happen? It's Israeli impunity, of course, that is responsible for Israeli behavior. But, but that begs the question, who gives Israel this impunity? With the genocide going on and the impunity that Israel enjoys and the way that it's behaving on the West Bank, because we talk about Gaza, but look at the West Bank. They're obviously trying to take it over and they're trying to get the people to leave. And it's being allowed. Now, that's when I say you've got to move the discussion on and to say, let's look at this, these enablers.
People are afraid to look into it because they're intimidated, they're scared. Anyone who speaks, anyone who questions the fundamentals of this is very easily antagonized, called anti-Semite, and all of that.
Yes, but you see, that's part of it. That's part of the enabling. So if you look at the use of anti-Semitism as a smear to prevent people from criticizing Israel, because that's what it's really about, and under that heading comes all pro-Palestinian activities. Why? Because the Palestinians are the best critics and the most important critics of Israeli behavior. So they have to be silenced. So once you see that the whole setup is designed to continue enabling Israel to do what it is doing and must not be hampered, this important work that Israel is doing of destruction must not be hampered by criticism, by boycotts, by sanctions, any of that. So they'll fight you if you point out something which is very obvious, that the Israeli army is killing children. If you point that out, they'd rather attack you than stop the Israeli army from killing Palestinian children. What kind of a situation is this?
I don't know. I don't know how were they allowed to do this. I mean, Israel and its enablers. And I remember one of the most viral videos of you when you confronted this Mr. Dayan at Oxford Union, I think. And you said, I remember what you said. You said, I find you fascinating, Mr. Dayan. You live in a stolen land, you drink stolen water, you eat stolen food, and still you have the self-assurance to tell to sensible people that they have this connection to this land. Here's the clip if you want to watch it with me to remember.
My national aspirations, you respect them, do you? I see. Well, the way you would respect them is by getting out of my land. That would be the best illustration of how much you respect my national aspirations. I find you fascinating, Mr. Dayan. I really do. I can't understand how you have such self-assurance. A man who was born in Argentina, whose family comes from the Ukraine, and is actually wanting people, sensible people, to believe that he has some connection with my country. But there's another point I want to put to you, since you respect me so much. Tell me, to many people, you, despite your eloquence, represent nothing other, you and your fellow settlers, nothing other than common thieves. You live on stolen land, you drink stolen water, you eat stolen fruit, you farm stolen farms. Convince me,
I will,
and the audience and the viewers, that you are not You and your settler friends are not common thieves.
Did he eventually convince you that he is not a common thief?
Of course not.
Of course.
Of course not. He was relying, and this is really an important point. The settlers like him, who carry out these illegal acts, are relying constantly on the Israeli army to defend them. And that has been the case ever since. This illustrates precisely why we have a problem with Israel. So long as it's got this powerful army, which is funded, supported, armed by the West, it's very difficult to do anything about the situation.
And by definition, he is a common thief. Those who live on stolen Palestinian lands in the settlements, they are thieves. And we Palestinians, we understand that they are thieves, and they enjoy being thieves because they are protected by Israel and the Israeli army. But what I don't understand is how these people have managed to gaslit the world, tell them that they have ownership of this land, that they belong to this land, and they know that they live on a privately owned Palestinian lands. How did they manage to gaslight the world in this way and come to Oxford Union and talk about it as if they are normal human beings, not thieves?
Yeah, and I understand your question, but it's part of the same syndrome, which is that they're allowed to. They have been indulged. They have been told that they are very special. They feel special. They've been encouraged in that belief. They really are special. And so they are above reproach. You cannot criticize them. If you criticize them, you're the one that gets punished. So this kind of setup is rotten. It's rotten to the core. And it took the Gaza genocide to expose this stuff, which is now fully exposed. So in making the point that I have been making, it's not to say that we need any more enlightenment. No, we have been enlightened by Gaza on so many issues. But this one in particular, because this is key to the whole situation. If you enable a people to believe themselves entitled to something which is not theirs, then you are the one who's at fault. Not so much the people who consider themselves entitled. For years I used to say, supposing red-haired people, all red-haired people, got together and said, we are a nation. We're a nation of red-haired people. We declare self-determination. We want territory to express our red-hairedness. Now, I've often used this example to say, no problem, that's fine. You can feel entitled as much as you like to being a nation on the basis of red hair or whatever it might be. But what you cannot do is take somebody else's country and make it your own and express your nationhood on that land. That is precisely what the Zionists did, and contrary to what the ordinary world would do if all these red-haired people started taking over Whitehall, let's say, saying this belongs to us. Of course, nobody would take them seriously. They'd kick them out, and they'd sort them out in a very short space of time. Our tragedy has been that these attitudes, which are unreasonable, were supported, encouraged, indulged, and enabled to thrive. That is why we have this monster called the State of Israel today.
Not only supported, but actually the West supported Israel. They went far to break the laws to support Israel, to rip the international law, to destroy the charters, to support Israel. What is so special about Israel that makes the Western leaders go that far by supporting them? I don't understand.
Indeed. And you're not alone. If people get to the point of asking the question which you just asked, They need to go the next step, which is to say, what is all this about? Why is Israel so important? And I suppose what I'm very interested in is that the discussion moves on to the enablers. What about these enablers? Who are they? And why? Why are they enabling this clearly an outlaw state, a gangster state, a violent state, an imposition on the whole Middle East that threatens the security of the region and the security of the world? Why? What is it that Israel does for these Western states that makes it so imperative to support it? Now, I welcome, first of all, a shift in emphasis. I'm trying to, I suppose, advise, as we are at the end of this year, that from now on, we concentrate our efforts, wherever we happen to be living, on why these countries enable Israel to behave the way it does, and what's it all about. Now, many of us Palestinians and our supporters are living in the very states which enable Israel. So I'd like to see a movement amongst all these people aimed at their governments, aimed at their representatives, to ask exactly those questions. Why are you supporting Israel? Why are you enabling it to commit genocide? Explain, just tell me. What is it? I would so welcome that shift of emphasis, because I think activism can take us quite far. And if the activism is targeted properly, then we can get answers.
I happened to ask one of the European MPs when I met him last year in Belgium about why do they support Israel. And before I asked him that question, I told him what is happening to Gaza, what Israel has done to my family, how there is a genocide, how Israel is committing war crimes, how Netanyahu is a war criminal. And then he stopped me and he told me, Ahmed, stop it. I said, why? And he said, he already knows that Israel is committing war crimes. He told me that he knows that Netanyahu is a war criminal. He knows everything. And everything that's happening in Gaza, he knows it very, very well. But then I asked him, then why do you still support Israel? And his response was, he sees that Israel is the shield that protects Europe from the savage Islamists of the Middle East. How do you respond to that? And by the way, that links us to another subject I want to talk about. Recently, every time I check social media, there is a huge rise of Islamophobia in the West. And this Islamophobia is somehow linked to Palestine, as if we are the Palestinians, the Muslims, and we are the savages, the terrorists who want to destroy Europe and take over the Western white civilization. Tell me, what is your take on this?
Yeah, this is a very important point that you've raised, because I don't know how many Palestinians understand this, but they have become a symbol for so much. They represent for ordinary for the ordinary mass of people. They represent freedom fighters, people who struggle for justice for their cause. They're admirable. They should be supported. At the same time, they pose an enormous danger to this setup of the enablers, as I call it, because by their very existence, by their very struggle, by the things that they talk about, they constantly threaten to undermine the support for the state that is committing these criminal acts. Now, what fascinates me about this is that the conclusion from that is not to actually, for these officials to say to themselves, wait a minute, why really are we supporting Israel? It is very heavy. It's a very heavy burden. It's very expensive. Why are we doing this? No, no, no. What they opt for is to target the Palestinians as objects of their hatred and their aggression. Hence the Islamophobia, hence all of that. Because, of course, there is an erroneous view in the West that the Palestinian population are Muslims, which is not true. But it's been used as a surrogate for Palestine. But you see, it's always, in the end, about the same thing. We need to understand it takes many forms, and it's meant to throw dust in your eyes, but it's always about the same thing. We must allow no danger to threaten the state of Israel. So the answer that your Belgian MP gave you sounds to me slightly hysterical, and I can't think that he's very bright. But there are many, many people engaged in the same support system for Israel who need to be interrogated. They need to be nailed down and to say, right, show me exactly what it is about Israel that you so support, that you ignore genocide, that you are happy to see the destruction of international law, that you're happy to see crime, land theft. What is it about the perpetrator of these crimes that you really support? Now, you need to tell me, because I want to understand. I'm a voter, and I need to understand. So I'm trying, I suppose, to steer the discussion in that direction, because that is something for activists to take up. But apart from the fact that it may be a very good cause for activists, it's fundamentally a very important question. I don't know the answer. I wish I did. Why should a state that was invented with an invented population have become so important that we can't live without it? Pre-1948, the world was getting on with its business. From 1948 and the establishment of Israel, Israel has become the pivot for global concern. Very, very strange and very worrying and very concerning. And I think we ought to take that up, and that will be a resolution for the next year.
Yeah. And during the past 2 years, we have seen a lot of protests, a lot of demonstrations, a lot of calls for our governments to change course, and they haven't. And I wonder, what is it about Israel that makes Britain and Europe undermine their own democracy to protect Israel?
Well, I think there are several levels to this. We're touching on it very lightly here, but this is a subject of something really quite deep. First of all, the support for Israel runs on many levels. Some of it very profound. And I'm talking here about the question of Christianity, the question of Christian-Jewish relations, the Holocaust, the guilt that people have always felt about the Jews, people in the West I'm talking about. So that's running on at one level. At another level, you mustn't neglect the active pro-Israel lobby that's been operating for decades in these Western countries, and particularly in the United States. And they have penetrated very deeply, I believe. So if you look at the population, say in the United States, which is the most Zionized, even though there are welcome changes, and I'm aware that there are these changes happening in people's attitude towards Israel, it's still the question of supporting Israel runs very deep. It's very widespread. And it's the same applies to Europe. So whenever you, how can I put it? So when you look at the end result of these processes in the shape of your member of parliament, let's say, he is so programmed, he or she, they are so programmed, they can't think straight about this issue. They really can't. So they trot out the usual cliches and they talk about terrorism and how the Palestinians are terrorists and, blaming the victim, that kind of thing. But it's really just a reflection of a muddle and secondly, a very complex interplay of attitudes towards Israel, Jews. It's all like that. And, you are inhibited from actually discussing this, very frankly, because of the fear of being branded an anti-Semite, which the Zionists have used highly effectively.
Yeah.
And, once you've got a population in thrall like this, where they're scared to open their mouths, where they can't, their subjects, they don't want to. And of course, the media is not only complicit, it's an active partner in all this. So once you've got that, very difficult to break.
As a Palestinian, Dr. Ghada Karmi, what does Zionism mean to you? My favorite question I always ask all my guests.
I'll tell you, Zionism is evil. It is purely evil. It has created disasters, misery, atrocities, wars, aggression, unhappiness, insecurity for millions of Palestinians and Arabs. This ideology has no place whatsoever in a just world. None. It has to go, it has to end, and it has to be removed. Even its memory has to go.
How will it go?
Very good question. Well, that's the thing that we have to struggle towards. We have to be very clear. We're not fighting Jews or people who are misguided and are ignorant. We are fighting the brains of behind the Zionist project and that keep promoting Zionism with all its evil on the world, and it has got to come to an end. That is why, for example, I have chosen to support the idea of one state, because one state means that the Palestinians can return to their homeland and the settler community, because that's what they are, that is currently living in Palestine, has to make a decision. They either join us in equal citizenship and equal rights, or if they don't like it, they have to leave. It's like that. There is only that way forward. I don't see any possibility of Israel, a Zionist state that commits genocide. I do not see any future for a state like this.
Dr. Ghada, I also believe in the one-state solution where everyone can live between the river and the sea with equal rights. Sometimes when I state my beliefs here to the Palestinians, especially to the Palestinians, many of them would tell me, how could you cohabitate with those who killed your family? How can we tell the Palestinians that we want a one-state solution where we, the Palestinians, the people who have been oppressed for the past 77 years, how are we asking them to cohabitate with those who have murdered them for the past 77 years?
Of course. And you can understand it. You can understand it. This is not a solution for tomorrow. It is not a solution for the very near future. It's not. But it is the end point. I like to think of it not so much as a solution, but the end point of this whole ghastly story. Because it has to end somewhere, and the end point has to be based on justice for the Palestinians and a compassionate offer to the settlers and their descendants who came to our country, and we will not do to them what they did to us, which is to kill them or to expel them. They stay, and they stay as equal citizens. That is the humane thing to do, I believe, and it's also the realistic thing to do.
It is the humane and realistic, but is it just solution? Is it a just solution?
Only in relative terms. I tell you why. Because the just solution would have been if there had never been an Israeli state. If the Palestinians had been left in their homeland to make their mistakes, to have their squabbles, to reach whatever it is that they aimed for, without a Western colonialist imposition like this. With this having happened, that's the best you can hope for. It's not ideal. But then how can you unmake what has already happened?
So, Dr. Ghada, speaking about Zionism, recently in the Your Party conference in Liverpool, which I attended, I'm not a member of your party, but I attended. And Zara Sultana, one of the co-founders of the party, she declared that she is anti-Zionist. And I think it's a first in the UK politics, a new political party that one of the co-founders declared that they are anti-Zionist. It's big. How important do you think that we have a political party, a leftist party in the UK that declares it is anti-Zionist? And how hopeful are you for this new party?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important for a political party, particularly one on the left, to be bold enough, courageous enough to come out and say explicitly that their position is anti-Zionist. There is no room for Zionism. There is no half Zionism. There's no soft Zionism or
Liberal
liberal
Zionism.
Zionism. It doesn't. To believe in those categories means one doesn't understand what Zionism is. So I think it's crucial, given the genocide, given the fact that Israel has come out in its true colors. If anybody was deluded, they should not be anymore. Now is the moment to come out and say publicly that one is anti-Zionist. Now, the problem with your party is that there is a very big opportunity here because there is a desperate need in the country for a left-wing party. But from what I've seen so far, I don't think the way this initiative is going has been promising so far. I remember initially thinking, what a wonderful thing that, and I was very excited that we now have a party which can express left-wing views. But I have been disappointed and let down, and quite frankly, I'm quite angry about it. I think this is a big responsibility. There is an expectation on the part of many people in this country to have different views to the prevailing ones. And certainly as far as Israel is concerned, as we saw that several MPs, these were MPs who had come in and were elected on a pro-Palestine ticket. That's unheard of in this country. What an opportunity. You know, we don't want to squander that. But what I've seen so far is quarreling, between factions within your party, and that is the disease of the whole of left-wing movements in this country and frankly in the world. It's very depressing to see this. And okay, I'm holding out some hope that they will put themselves right, because it's a very big responsibility, this. And they need to understand that people have hopes. They want to hear the truth for once. They want to support positions which are just positions. It would be wonderful if your party were to fulfill all that. At the moment, I'm not sure.
Well, nothing excited me more when I heard that there is a new leftist party in the UK, especially Zara and Jeremy Corbyn. Both of them, I love them very much. I supported. They're very vocal on Palestine, and I was very excited. And I have to be honest, I was disappointed in what happened. But some people say that it is a democratic party. Disagreements can happen, but eventually, this is how you build a political movement. It will take time, and that we should not rush to conclusions that this is not going to be good. So
maybe. Let's hope so. But isn't it interesting that on issues which are to do with fundamental justice, with social equality, the politicking around it is usually fraught and difficult, whereas on the right wing, an agreement to rob people of their wealth and to behave unjustly invites enormous unity. It's so ironic.
I don't want to be controversial here, but I think one of the things that I do not like about the left is that they're really good at fighting each other.
Yeah.
Not building a movement that is inclusive, that includes everybody, despite our differences. And it is okay to have differences. We are all different, but for God's sake, we are at an existential
I agree.
turning point right now, and we need to work with each other despite our differences. And that is what I'm really disappointed in the left.
Yes, I understand.
We need the left. We needed to be strong. We needed to be powerful. We need them to stand up
Indeed.
In the face of the far right that is purging our cities.
Absolutely, absolutely. They could not be more important, and therefore it is irresponsible to mess up this opportunity, which is still there. So, obviously, we hope.
Especially when they have huge support at the beginning. 700,000 people signed up for your party. And then, so we need more responsibility.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
also, we need the Palestinians also to have a place in these political parties.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, Palestine, one of the things that the tragedy of Gaza, among the many things it's done, is it's made clear to the world that supporting the Palestinians is a litmus test of whether you're actually human or not.
Of course.
So, in that sense, yes, we are in total agreement.
So I will take you back a little bit when you said that there is nothing called liberal Zionism. And there has been a lot of talks about it within even the new party and also in Palestine, because what is the definition of liberal Zionists? Some people say that the PA and even Hamas are liberal Zionists because they believe in the two-state solution and all of that. What is your response to that?
Well,
what defines a liberal Zionist?
Mm-hmm. Well, I have never believed in liberal Zionism because it's Zionism.
Yeah.
I have a very clear position on Zionism of any sort, of any color, whatever it calls itself. It's Zionism in the end. And that is not permissible. It's not something that you would have anything to do with. Whether it calls liberal, itself liberal or what. We know very well that this label of liberal Zionists was applied very much by the Zionists themselves as well, to describe a kind of middle course type Israel supporter who believes in Israel, who believes in its right to exist, all this business, but is not hardline and nasty to the Palestinians. That's what a liberal Zionist is. So in the 1990s, after the Oslo Agreement, all these liberal Zionists crawled out of the woodwork. They were everywhere in this country, in Britain, I can tell you. And you could see they were very happy with themselves because they could cherish and go on supporting the idea and the existence of an exclusive state, an apartheid state, while being nice to Palestinians. What a lovely way to live your life. Well, no, it's.
They want to have it both.
Yes, and you could see it, and there were a lot of people who were a lot of liberal Zionists who were very warm suddenly towards Palestinians because the Palestinians, the way I read it, is the Palestinians gave them the chance through the Oslo Agreement to feel good about themselves. Well, no Zionist should feel good about him or herself, no Zionist, because Zionism, as I said before, is evil, it's unacceptable, and it has to go.
But what is your response to those people who say that, well, your Palestinian Authority is liberal Zionist because they believe in the two-state solution, and even Hamas in their new charter, they believed in the two-state solution. So that is, they describe as liberal Zionism. And how can you blame them for being liberal Zionists if your own Palestinian leaders are adopting the same political agenda?
Well, first of all, the liberal Zionists came first. I mean, it's not as if the Palestinian Authority or anybody else discovered liberal Zionism. They didn't. That existed because of the Zionists. So that's one. Secondly, I've always explained support for the two-state solution among Palestinians in a much more simple way, which is that so many Palestinians were afraid to lose the whole of the homeland. They opted for a part of it, even a small part of it, rather than none of it, which was their great fear. That's what it's all about. It's nothing to do with Zionism on the Palestinian side.
Did you have a fallout with the PA and the PLO?
Well, I think probably the biggest falling out was when I wrote and published a memoir called Return.
Yes.
Now, Return tells the story of my working for the PA, for the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah, in 2005. This is just immediately before the elections that brought in Hamas. Now, there were things I saw there that I didn't hesitate to reveal in the book. Now, people used to say to me, aren't you worried about what these officials whom you've depicted very unflatteringly, what they will feel? I used to say, well, not really, because they don't read. So I know, but actually, if any of
They
them,
must have read it, though.
yes, but if they had read it, yes, they would feel very badly indeed, and they would criticize me. But you have to tell the truth.
I've met you last time in Istanbul, Dr. Ghada, at the Gaza Tribunal. And I was very proud of the outcome. The outcome was you denounce Zionism in the tribunal. And I think that was very promising. It was great that at the tribunal, all of the judges decided that Zionism is a form of racism and must be abolished. But then I was talking to my friend there in Istanbul, and he told me that he refuses to attend all of these conferences and tribunals and anything that happens in these hotels and nice venues, because it's all about talk. We talk and we talk and we talk, and there is nothing material that happens. What is your take on that? Should we stop doing these conferences, these tribunals, these events? Because me personally, it's all my life is about it. Not all of it, but I am doing it every day. Every day I speak at conferences, at events. I travel to speak about Palestine. And sometimes I stop and think, what am I doing? Is this the right thing or not?
Yeah, I really have a lot of sympathy with your friend. I understand very well how he feels that however much we talk, it's not bringing us Palestine back. However, I think actually it's a mistake um, to to avoid all these sorts of events because they are, the way I regard them, is they are essential building blocks. They will not individually or together bring back Palestine, but they will help in the general effort to keep, first, to keep Palestine on the international agenda. And that is very important. Second, to give the Palestinians legitimacy. When they speak, when they describe their experiences, they are explaining to people that they are legitimate human beings who suffer, who want a better life. And that message has to get across again and again. And thirdly, it does, depending on the particular type of meeting, it involves subgroups of people, say lawyers or doctors or other groups like this, which focuses attention for that particular group to look out. It's really an awareness raising exercise, and it's essential. What else? What else have we ever had as Palestinians? Awareness raising.
In many of these events that I speak at, I am often asked by the activists and the attendees. They would ask me, "What would you like us to do?" What is your advice to people who are angry, who want to help Palestine, who want to do something for Palestine, but they feel helpless?
My advice is something that I was speaking about just recently with you, is to target the official structures which keep Israel going. They need to understand that being nice to Palestinians or sending food or whatever is fine, but it is not the point. The point for people living in Western democracies is they can express a view. Admittedly, there are restrictions, there are problems, but nevertheless they can. And they have every entitlement to talk to their elected representatives and other such official structures. And I think they need to do that. They need to come to them and say, I want this genocide to stop. What can you do? What can you do? Why don't you help me? Like that. It has to be that direct and that simple. Nobody can deny that. They can't show them the door because they're asking that. And you see, that is focused, it focuses the activism on where it should be. Those are the people who can do something about it. You and me, we are victims, we can listen, we can give advice, but in the end, the power doesn't lie with us. The power lies with these official structures and with the media, of course. So that's what they need to target.
Do you think that's enough?
You know, if, of course, it would be wonderful if that could even happen. You think about it, how difficult it is to get a lobbying, it's after all, it is lobbying, to get a lobbying in place for Palestine of a quarter of the power and the strength of the Israel lobby. I think it would be remarkable if that could happen.
Of course, it will be remarkable. But even those who speak up for Palestine and try to do this kind of lobbying, they face a lot of repression from the governments. For example, we talked about the Gaza Tribunal in Istanbul, and then the president of the Gaza Tribunal, who is a respected human rights lawyer, Richard Falk, who is Jewish American, Just after he left the Gaza Tribunal and he was in Canada, he was detained by the police there and he was questioned about his work for Palestine, for doing this tribunal.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me because we talked earlier about the multi-layered nature of the support for Israel. Anything that threatens Israel, and even this venerable elderly man who has the unimpeachable reputation and background, anybody who is engaged in activities which show up Israel in a bad light is immediately the target of these forces. It's these forces that I really think need to engage us. We need to think about them, to find ways of getting at them.
What do you say to these people who have good heart, who want to do something for Palestine, but they're intimidated, they're scared. They're scared of this repression in the West. They're scared for losing their jobs, for example. And they want to help, but they're very scared.
Yeah, well, individual action is not for them. When you are nervous, and you have every right to be, I understand it, but you never work alone. You have to join other groupings. And there are groupings, they exist. They can be based on the church, they can be based on Palestine Solidarity Campaign, they can be based on various medical charities. Don't work alone. That's my advice.
So, Dr. Ghada, there's a video I want to show you. Here's a video.
There's been 4 weeks of hunger strikes. Why have you said nothing? Why have you said nothing?
My name is Shamina. I'm a sister of one of the hunger strikers. We have been waiting for this and we've been in the There's 7 hunger strikers in the UK right now. They have five people. We've got the letter for you. We're waiting for a response. My brother is on now day 25. I know they wrote to you about October end of October. I'm getting with this girl. And we're going in the UK.
So this is David Lammy when he was asked about the hunger strikers of Filton 24. 2 of them are hospitalized because they have been their health deteriorated after their hunger strike. And he said he did not know anything about it. He even questioned if they were in Britain. So what is your take on that?
First of all, it's disgraceful. The response of David Lammy is absolutely disgraceful. And the fact that he implies that he knew nothing about these hunger strikers is no excuse. It's even more disgraceful. And by the way, the fact that the media have not covered this tragedy sufficiently is also part of it. But you see, in the end, it's an enactment of exactly the thing that I was talking about before. David Lammy would literally panic to be required to respond in some way which can be read as criticism of Israel. Because if he comes out and he says, these hunger strikers shouldn't be on hunger strike, they haven't committed a crime, we must stop this immediately, the whole issue is one that is under review and is deeply troubling for the government, this kind of thing. Even something as feeble as that would terrify him in case he was seen as indirectly criticizing Israel. This is what it's about. We're back to the same issue, but showing itself in different ways. And this one is particularly despicable. These poor people who have innocently supported a just cause and find themselves forced into hunger strikes in order to draw attention to themselves. They're being denied that. And the media is fully complicit in this.
The media is fully complicit. The media did not say anything about this case.
Nothing.
But you know what? The media also did not say anything about this despicable human being, Gvir, who came out a few days ago with the badge of the hangsman. How did this person become so evil? And why is the media not covering this?
Well, there are two questions there, you see. The one that relates to Gvir is that the problem with the Israeli government, the current Israeli government, is that because of Netanyahu's intricate arrangements to avoid the law catching up with him, he has had to elevate to positions of the cabinet people who are really completely unfit. They are people you wouldn't even employ as a doorman, somebody like Gvir. He obviously is a person of very low competence, no moral sense whatsoever. So it doesn't surprise me that he should have the hangman's noose emblem on his wearing it, because that goes with the kind of low life we're talking about. However, a second issue, of course, is the media. Why? Again, it's the same. We're back to the same thing.
The enablers of the occupation.
Of course,
genocide.
absolutely. And the media played a major role in that. And so it reinforces the message that I've tried to give all along in our interview. We have to get at this enabling of Israel to behave in this way and to avoid any kind of criticism. I mean, apropos of that, by the way, we didn't mention that the judicial review of the Palestine Action case at the courts of justice, which terminated just in the last 2 days, no mainstream media covered this at all. It's a very important issue of justice and injustice, of free speech. I don't know how much more relevant it has to be to society in this country for the media to start covering it. But you see, again, we're on to the same thing. It goes to such depths. It is so fundamental. It's so inculcated into the public sphere. It's quite terrifying.
You are also a writer, an author, and your writing is very powerful, very powerful. I try to learn from you, Dr. Ghada. Now, after watching what happened in Gaza and the genocide, do you feel that words and language can capture the gravity, the scale of the destruction and horror in Gaza?
I do. And that's why so many of Gaza's young writers and poets have been destroyed by the Israelis, because they know very well the power of words. And I have that in my own heritage, by the way. My uncle was one of the very early nationalist poets called Abu Salma. Abu Salma wrote very courageous verses against the British mandate, for example.
Abu Salma the poet.
Abu Salma the poet.
That was your uncle?
That's my uncle, my father's brother. And he wrote a poem about the Balfour Declaration. And he was arrested by the mandate authorities. So this goes back a very long way, this imperative to protect Zionism is quite extraordinary. You know, if no other message comes across from this interview with you, it should be that Zionism is a force which has enslaved Western governments, which has destroyed so much for the Palestinians. This force, Zionism, is something we all need to think about and to fight without any hesitation.
How is this all related to medieval Baghdad?
Well, I think our viewers at this point are wondering, what the hell are you talking
Where did
about?
this come from?
I think that what you are referring to is that my very, very newest book is nothing to do with Palestine, nothing to do with activism. It is a novel, and it is set in medieval Baghdad. And I've been asked the question, what on earth are you, a Palestinian writer who is known for your writings on Palestine, what are you doing writing about Baghdad in the 9th century? Well, you know, I started with this book, which is called Murjana. I started thinking about it at a time when I was really very troubled about the Palestinian situation. You know, I'd worked so hard, so many of my colleagues had done the same, but nothing seemed to change for the Palestinians. Personally, I was very downcast about that, and I got depressed. And then I thought to myself, maybe the best thing to do is to get away completely from the subject of Palestine and busy myself with something else. So I hit on Baghdad at the height of the Islamic Empire, wonderful, glorious, magnificent city, and what it was like. So the story, all the events of the story take place in Baghdad, and it's partly a love story, but it's partly a murder mystery. So I hope that the reader will become engaged and find themselves reading this book avidly. But of course, you know, I'm political through and through. As soon as I thought about it and I started to do some research, I realized what it was really all about. It was really about getting the message across to the Western, hopefully the Western English-speaking reader, that Arabs are not rubbish. They're not colonized rubbish. They have a glorious history. They have a magnificent past, magnificent achievements. And you, the colonial West, have abused us. You have made us feel bad about ourselves. That's not fair, and it's not right. Read this book and try and understand how it was, how once upon a time we had a glorious empire, its capital in Baghdad. It happened once, and it can happen again.
I'm looking forward to reading this book. Everyone should read Murjana. Everyone should read In Search of Fatima and The One State and Return, many of your books. Dr. Ghada, thank you very, very much for joining me today.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you.